So to give a brief awareness, basically what's taking place is if we imagine a courtroom in the ether, and there is divine justice representatives that are enforcing the consequential action of breaking universal law and aligning with the cause and effect of God's law. So we have a lot of charge around consequences and things like that from our human lens, and so it can be a little uncomfortable to make sense of. But basically, at the end of this 42,000 year cycle, and there's a specific 26,000 year cycle that's also closing as well. But they're different cycles. But this 42,000 years is from the very, very point of the creation of the earth. So from the creation of Mother Geia, which was created by the Anunnaki. Now, anywhere that the earth has not had beings abide by universal law in the structures of what has been created up until this point are going under, I guess, observation. But the tricky thing about this is that a lot of the beings that have manipulated this reality, the reason that they haven't been reprimanded is because they use trickery and they use ways where they're not witnessed or seen. And so in quantum physics, have you ever heard that the story where they say unless you've witnessed a tree fall, then it's considered it never fell? Yeah. So that theory is truth. And if there was no witness, then it doesn't happen. So a lot of the things that have taken place in reality either haven't been witnessed yet in remembrance based on all of the amnesia consciousness and the different things that take place, or they have been manipulated so that what you thought you saw was not what you actually saw. So like through inversions of consciousness. And so there are huge players that have been in control of the earth since the beginning that are being exposed through the illumination of beings like you and I that are starting to see the distortions within our own memory, and that works as being witness to trial. So say you're going back into a memory where you see these entrapment or the persecution that goes against God's will, then those experiences are recorded because they're then witnessed in consciousness. So as soon as you remember something, it goes in the true mind, because we are all one mind, into the record books per se. And this the main consciousness that's being looked at is the one-dimensional and two-dimensional consciousness, which is your inner earth realms, which is where, say, Atlantis is considered an inner earth realm because it was an underwater city. So there's different experiences of those dimensions that are not seen in the true reality of what they are. If you've ever journeyed to Agatha, it feels really pretty. It's like this mystical forest, but when you look a little further and you see what's actually going on, it's like a magical forest of trickery, and it's like being in you know those movies where you're like walking and then all of a sudden you're like sinking in the swampy, like that kind of stuff. So it's like a full manipulation on reality, and they've got cleansing waters down there, or they say they're cleansing waters, and what they do is they actually strip your gifts and abilities and they retain them in the waters down there. So it's quite clever. It's very clever, and it's its polarity to the dimension of hell. So if we recognize that the further you go down, the more trickster energy there is, we are looking at kind of the sacral and root chakra energies and assisting in purifying that consciousness. So what that means for you, the point of it is that when there is exposure, so there's a lot of energy around the pedophilia distortions and witnessing that, and ancestral healing and witnessing where our ancestors have been out of accordance. I've got my whole father's line that I didn't, for some reason, have never looked at. I realize now why, because it's around female, pedophiles that are females, and I've never even put focus of attention there ever. I'm like, I don't even know what a female pedophile feels like. I don't even, like, it was like a real blind sight to me yesterday. I was like, how has this even happened? Like, how can I be at this point of my evolution and never allowed that into my awareness? So in relation to those things, there are, say you've got a being like myself, like you, that is a bright light. What happens is we get used as a shield, right? So people hide behind the bright light. And there's a lot of manipulation around the innocence or the desire to purify something that, is distorted, or to see everyone with the benefit of the doubt. And we end up getting, I guess, manipulated into a lot of different things, or we have our own distortions, and we can be hiding people from actually releasing, like being witnessed in their own stuff and growing and evolving. And so that's where the energy theme of enabling is coming up a lot at the moment. Where are we enabling behavior based on our inability to sort of be in our own strength, to say, actually, no, this, I can see that you're hurting. I can see that there's challenges for you, and yes, you might be in a dark night of a soul, or stressful, or whatever the story is, but there's this real, do you recognize that there is a level of what are you doing in the name of love, kind of? What is it that's really of the highest good? Because we can want to be so compassionate and kind to people because that's our natural state of being, and then there's an overstepping of boundaries where it becomes toxicity, and it becomes actually that you end up involved in the mess that is being created, and actually become what is it, where you become like an accessory, right? Pretty much. and these are the words that are like actually being used, which is very interesting. But it's all layers of consciousness have these interpretations. So as the individuals are being tried and watched, and there are role changes, so that's where it might shift and look different or feel different for you. There is beings that are here that are not choosing their path, and so what happens at this point is they are being effectively let go from their position. So there's promotions and demotions and all kinds of things that are taking place, which is drastically, like moment to moment, almost realigning the energy field. So if you're not getting clear inside of where you're going at the moment, or you're getting a lot of just hold and wait, and you have clear insight but you're like not acting, because you're like, I know I have to do this thing, but I'm not being guided to actually move on anything, it's because at the moment there's so much moving that it's like waiting until the right the transition time is complete, so that there's stable, solid foundation again, because we are not in stability at all. And it becomes one of those things where you get frustrated because you're like trying to I guess not even push against, but it just won't land because the energy's moving too quickly, and moving around too much. So how that can look is a little uncomfortable. soul family, soul groups, people that you might have journeyed time and space with, depending how long you've been on the earth, could just drop out of the field from a consciousness level. So we'll say from a spirit essence level. If they've come here with a big mission and they're not choosing their big mission, it's kind of at a point where they don't get any more choices. And it's based on evolution. So if you're got a big mission but you're only just awakening, it's based on what are the choices for that level of awareness. So it's not like you have to know your mission. You don't have to be aware of all of these things, but you need to be choosing from a place of what's aligned with your heart, kind of. And that might be stepping off, depending on where you are, like 5 steps this way and then slowly coming back on and doing this dance, but you're not going like this. Or you're, the best expression I can use is that my previous partner, he has a very important vessel. So his vessel is specifically coded as one of 12 men in the world, and he knows that his cosmic path is the most important thing as to why he's here on the planet. Yet his words of his human would be, I'm not ready and it can wait, and I need to build money first and then I can do my cosmic mission. That's not an option. So there is consequential action that's basically taking place to someone like that's aware that I'm here to do big things, but I'm not ready yet, and I don't want to make those changes because it's too uncomfortable, or I don't want to take accountability and responsibility, and I'm going to brainwash myself and everyone else in my energy field so that I don't have to do it. Which is, there's a lot of that energy of like, I guess gaslighting, self-gaslighting, and gaslighting others around to justify choices. So there's going to be a radical sort of release. Now, that doesn't mean death from a physical standpoint, so I just want to let you guys know that so that you're really clear, because you might have things come up and feelings and different people in your field and you're like, oh, they're not choosing, right? Because it sucks. I've got a housemate here that moved in as an opportunity to choose his path. And he's a Christos Brotherhood member, and he just stopped choosing, and it's like, it doesn't matter, I can be like here open-armed, like I'm at your service, and it becomes that. And so he lost his position, and he's also moving out of my house now, so it's pretty uncomfortable. What that means is more of an energetic aspect. So what happens is, because it will be important for you to understand yourself and in future, so I will explain it, is say we've got the number 144. If you just feel into we'll still use that number. We feel into the field, just closing your eyes. We're going to ask to feel into the quantum field, into that of the energy signature of the bringers of change. That's what I'll do. I'll use the name bringers of change. Volunteers that have come here specifically for a purpose. We're here to be of service. And if you feel into that field and you ask for some awareness of how many individuals have been released from the 144 in the last week, and you just sort of get a sense and a feeling of how much lighter this space is. I don't know if you've ever done this before, if you've ever tuned into that energy, but you'll probably see, experience from your higher self's lens. And then you're going to ask, once you've got a sense of that and you're being sort of shown, by the end of the eclipse, what do you feel the field will feel like? A prediction into the future around how much, what that's going to sort of perceive to be feeling, looking like. Now, when you get that sense of like the lightness and the amount of energies that are dropping away, and basically, it's like dropping away these lower density frequencies, if we can even, in the same way we would work on ourselves, right? We're releasing what no longer serves. And we do need to come into such a neutral point of God's eyes in these expressions. But if you look, all right, now we're going to step out of the bringers of change energy and just see where does all that energy go? Where do they sit now? Like, where will they be? And just, yeah, bringing some awareness into like what you might be witnessing and observing in that way of what happens to all of these souls in the physical and in the energetic, so that you can have some acceptance, because sometimes when we're moving through big things like we are, it can be a shock. So if you can get awareness now, so that you can move through any of your own emotions, any of your own hurt, any of your own grief, any stories that might arise, be supportive to your nervous system. So what you might witness is that there can be a few different things that basically they're. So there's an option of that their consciousness goes to one frame of consciousness, and it might be that instead of being that really highly evolved embodied being in this reality that's maybe not remembered or anchored, that they that part of their consciousness it's kind of overridden by the conscious, because our conscious memory or our conscious mind is more powerful than any other. And so what can happen is you can override your higher self by being so stuck in a 3-dimensional or a 5-dimensional expression. So some of these energies the part of them that has maybe been in a 7th or a 9th dimension can override their consciousness and be a human being that has a 5th dimensional consciousness or a 3-dimensional consciousness. Some may actually just be ejected out of Earth and leave the planet. And that can happen in multiple ways. You know, there can be other energies like walk-ins and things that happen. There can be physical death. There can be, in this reality, you can actually even have a human being that's kind of like an NPC. So you could have a bringer of change step out and it becomes like an NPC. Because you've already got a physical vessel that's got programs and beliefs and personality and all of that. So you don't need to necessarily have a light conscious. It's already a consciousness. Our vessel is already a consciousness. So it doesn't need to have a housed expression inside of it to function in this reality. So that might bring up some grief and different feelings in relation to you might not even have really connected with some of your soul group and soul pod, and so that can be painful in the idea of losing them before you even get to connect with them in this incarnation. I guess it's a really high level way of looking at grief and choice and what is really important to me in my choices. And I have never been at threat myself of anything like this happening, because I made a declaration as soon as I woke up to who I was, that my primary relationship was with God. So because I chose that very early, there was no opportunity for me to get that distracted that I would end up in a position like this. But I have some very beautiful, dear loved ones that have. And I would say that it does tend to be more that's not true. It can be avoidant or victim mentality, right? It's just a lack of accountability, ownership, devotion, and choosing. And the challenge is that when you bring awareness like this to people, they often resist and they don't want to hear it, and it's not received in the way that it could be supportive. And how can we line you up? Like, it doesn't have to be a pressure. It can be a beautiful, like, okay, if this is important to you, then how do we line you up? It might be, some people it might be a declaration, right? It might be so simple to say, okay, I have to step out of this identity get into my aligned energy. Sometimes it's so simple, and other times there are bigger choices of, okay, I need to leave this relationship. I need to recognize that this job is not serving me, and even though I have no idea how the fuck I'm going to survive in the world, that I have no other choice but to do this because it's against every part of my knowing of my being. And so, yeah, these moments of choice are pretty profound. But I do want to share from a sister of mine that I was journeying with. She's a super powerful being. She's so, like, she has the level of, very close to the capability of energy that I have. Like, she's an amazing channel. And yeah, she just couldn't move through her human stuff. And even though she had all the awareness, she'd journeyed all these realms with me and knows the bigger picture mission, knows what's going to happen, completely aware of everything, couldn't move past her own self-service expression of her own identity. And she lost her position back in 8-8, and for her, when she realized, because I said it is the most heartbreaking thing. If you want to know anything for a bringer of change, it's not that you lose your family, it's not that you lose, this relationship or this thing. If you lose your position or your soul mission, that is shattering. You won't want to live on the planet anymore. It's more than any human story that you've been given as a created idea. And so, yeah, she had that awareness from me, but it wasn't until it happened that she felt it. And she said that everything in her world looked beautiful, everything was aligning and synergizing, but she just didn't want to be here anymore. She was like, I would rather die, than be in this reality. And I was able to assist her in making a new choice, but she wasn't able to regain her position because she'd stepped too far off the path and other people were choosing and stepped in. So it's like, yeah, it's that. And she's not even a part of the 144 anymore. That's how much she's just stopped choosing. And she's not in my life simply for that reason, and not because I don't love her and not for any other reason, but that would be a pretty uncomfortable thing to process and move through, because the people that she loves so much as soul family don't resonate with her because of her choices. So yeah, I just feel like it's important. It's probably, it's truth. It's just truth.